A trilithon is formed by two upright stones, holding a third stone across the top. And they're simple in shape, but eternal in purpose. Let me go on to make it clear. Spiritually, it's a revelation. It was a revelation for me because a trilithon teaches three eternal truths. Stability requires a dual foundation, elevation requires weight, and survival across the ages is proof of divine endorsement. Nothing in the spiritual realm stands by a single pillar. Every divine assignment rests on two living forces, either lineage and calling, or heaven and earth, or soul and spirit, right? And when these two come into agreement, a third element appears, and that would be the mantle that completes the structure. So again, if you have soul and spirit, those two working together, for example, and your soul and spirit are in agreement, a third element will appear, and that is the mantle that goes across the top, and that completes the structure. Now, the capstone of a trilithon is heavy, so that's the one that goes across the two that are standing parallel, up and down. And that weight represents responsibility, as is our shoulders, right? The weight represents responsibility, power, and divine recognition. People admire the structure, but they rarely consider the pressure required to hold that upper stone in place. And that's the chosen experience. You are honored, but carrying weight few could withstand on your shoulders. Now, trilithons, they survive storms, centuries, empires, wars, governments, agendas, and erasures. And if you're wondering where this became a revelation for me, you can look up trilithons on the internet so you can see what I'm talking about, right? See, they remain not because they were protected, but because they were anchored. The chosen walked the same way, anchored enough to outlast what was never designed to see them crumble. See, the trilithon becomes a metaphor for the chosen's life path. The two uprights represent the forces that shape you. The capstone that represents what you carry. It is across the top. And the open center is the spiritual doorway that you guard. See, every chosen one essentially walks as a living trilithon, a human gateway between worlds, between generations, and between divine assignments. People will sense it even if they can't name it on you and in you, because your presence feels ancient, weighted, and configured for endurance. And the very shape of you becomes a boundary in the spirit that darkness cannot bypass. The trilithon teaches that every chosen one is shaped by a threefold design. Two forces that rise from the ground of your life, holding up the assignment that's placed across the top. But the center, the opening, is the real mystery, because that open space is where heaven speaks, where your lineage breathes through, where revelation travels without obstruction. It is the passageway that darkness cannot counterfeit. See, people meet you and think they're seeing a person, but what they're actually encountering is a threshold, a doorway, a passage point where their intentions, their motives, and their hidden patterns will collide with a higher realm they'd never expect. That's why emotions shift around us. And that's why confusion, confession, guilt, inspiration, awakening, and even agitation. Something stirs. No one walks through the opening of a trilithon without being altered. No one experiences you without being altered. So in the ancient world, when I say ancient world, I'm speaking thousands of years ago, Trilithons were placed where transitions would happen, at borders, pathways, and sacred grounds, because they marked the moment where one world ended and another began. Now, this is the unspoken truth about the chosen. Your life becomes that border. You are stationed at the edge of old cycles in order to usher in what has never been lived before. See, you stand as a witness that greatness still rises from broken soil. Every step you take disrupts agreements that were made in silence by people who thought your lineage would never rise again. The weight across your shoulders is not punishment, it is appointment. It is the capstone that rests on stones that can hold it. So when you feel pressure, it is not because you are failing. It's because you are being shaped to endure across ages. So the Trilithon does not collapse because the seasons changes. It stays, it withstands, and it outlives the hands that built it. You carry that same endurance in your spirit. So your step will echo with the sound of people who prayed before you, who suffered before you, who hoped before you, and dreamed before you, and refused to let your destiny die in transit. A Trilithon is not closed. It is intentionally open. See, the chosen are not called to be walled away from the world. You are called to stand where energies cross, where futures form, where decisions ripple through generations. See, you stand with an opening in you that lets truth pass through, that is not distorted. That opening makes you transparent in a world that is built on pretenses. It makes you accountable in a culture built on excuses. So it makes you powerful in an environment where deception thrives. And you do not bend yourself to fit the room. The room bends around the threshold you carry. So when adversaries approach you, they approach an ancient gate. So when envy approaches you, it confronts an alignment that is older than its existence. When attacks are sent towards you, they hit the invisible frame you stand within. And that is why some forces will retreat. This is why some plans will collapse. That is why some people cannot maintain their intent around you. They step into the opening and their motives are exposed by the pressure of truth moving through you. So the Trilithon is the chosen one's inner configuration. Two forces rising, remember, and it is your origin and your calling. So just imagine your origin is one leg, your calling is the other, and your shoulder is the mantle that is stretching across you. So the responsibility you did not ask for, but cannot avoid, and an opening that nothing can shut. If you look at a Trilithon, it just can't be shut, right? There's no door, because the passageway is where divine instruction flows through you with precision. Every generation has a few who stand at the threshold while everyone else walks through without paying attention. A few whose footsteps hold memory, whose presence interrupts rehearsed narratives, whose inner life becomes a crossroads between what was and what will be. See, these are the gatekeepers of destiny. See, the chosen do not choose the role. The role chooses them. They are chosen. They are not a chooser. So long before you were recognized, or you recognize, I'll say, the pattern in your life, the pattern recognized you. Long before you understood your very own authority, the authority was already functioning. So long before you saw the reflection clearly, heaven had already carved your name into the timeline. So a gatekeeper is not a guard in the human sense, because a guard protects what is behind them. A gatekeeper governs what may pass through them. And they are not stationed to defend a location, but to uphold the lineage. So you are the ones whose life has been shaped into a trilithon. There are two forces rising from the ground of your existence, holding the mantle placed across your shoulders. Your identity becomes a threshold. Your presence becomes a boundary. The way you walk, the way you speak, the way you perceive, and the way you endure becomes the opening through which truth travels into the world. And this is why the chosen experience life differently, because they walk through spaces that collapse under others. So they survive weights that destroy others. They hear instructions that others ignore. They feel disruptions before they surface. And they sense intentions before they are spoken. Their life is a living signal that the unseen realm is not silent. And every time they stand up, something ancient stands with you. And I want to repeat something in case it went over anyone's head. Your life is a living signal that the unseen realm is not silent. I just need to make sure you got that. See, because gatekeepers are born into families where the door has been left open too long, where patterns roam freely, where trauma repeats its cycle, agreements go unchallenged, and visibility becomes the family language. But when a gatekeeper rises, the opening shifts. The threshold becomes regulated by spiritual law instead of human emotion. Generational breaches are repaired by their stance alone. Your life becomes the announcement that nothing gets to walk through this door without being seen for what it is. Many chosen ones feel isolated, right? Because gatekeepers, which we are not placed among many. They are placed where the spiritual traffic is heavy, where the flow of destiny is contested, and where the future of a bloodline can turn on one decision. Their sensitivity is not a weakness. It is their early warning system. It is your discernment. And your discernment is not judgment. It is your ancestral intelligence speaking through you. And your endurance is not accidental. It is training for the role you didn't know you were being prepared for. Now, gatekeepers carry an authority, and that is not loud. It's not loud, but undeniable. See, their silence has impact. Their stillness has a force, and their boundaries reconfigure the atmosphere. Their presence exposes motives in others without a word being spoken. This happens because the gate they embody does not tolerate deception. So when people approach you, they unknowingly step into a spiritual checkpoint. Authenticity passes freely. And so hidden malice triggers a reaction. And jealousy will vibrate under pressure. See, the gatekeeper becomes a living truth detector. Not because you choose to be, but because the threshold you embody demands honesty. Gatekeepers of destiny are not there to block. They are there to filter. So they allow through what aligns with the divine narrative, and they halt what threatens the assignment. And they adjust the flow of energy, influence, and intention around them. So when a gatekeeper shifts their position emotionally, spiritually, and mentally, an entire environment recalibrates. Basically, when you show up, things must change. So people will feel it without understanding why. You have a leader energy, right? So if anything is going on, they would like to choose you as a leader. And the room will feel different, right? And the conversations will feel different. And opportunities will open, agendas will weaken, hidden hostility will surface. Because the gate has spoken, even if the gatekeeper remains silent. Your presence alone holds strength. And this is why warfare finds the gatekeeper early in life because darkness attempts to corrupt the threshold before it matures. Now, it tries to overwhelm the uprights of the Trilithon before the mantle settles. So it sends discouragement to weaken your stance. It will send betrayal to fracture the opening, and it'll send doubt in order to distort the passageway. But every attack becomes part of the shaping. Every wound becomes part of the stabilizing, and pressure becomes proof of your purpose. And the resistance becomes evidence of your rank. See, gatekeepers must learn one truth above everything. You do not block with emotion, you block with your identity. You do not govern with fear, you govern with insight. You do not stand in reaction, you stand in revelation. Because you do not bend under influence, you become the influence. See, your authority is not earned by performance, but it is unlocked through recognition of who you already are. So when a gatekeeper finally accepts their role, the environments will shift permanently. Family cycles break, silence is replaced with discernment, and confusion dissolves into direction. So internal chaos settles into divine order. And suddenly the path that was unclear will become illuminated because the keeper of the path has awakened. And there is one more mystery. The gatekeeper is not alone. A gate cannot stand without what holds it. So the Trilithon you embody is supported by dual forces of origin and your assignment. So what you came from and what you were born for work together to support the mantle that's placed across your life. I'm going to say it again. What you came from, your lineage, and what you were born for will work together to support the mantle that's placed across your life. And the opening, the space within where heaven speaks, is what darkness fears the most. It is the place where you are guided with precision and not by opinions, not by trends, but by the one who appointed you. You are the point where lineage meets future. So you are the crossing where the old world ends and the new world begins, because you are the last barrier to what should have never entered and the first passageway to what must now be released. And this is the identity of you as a gatekeeper of destiny, not being chosen because you were popular, but being chosen because you were trusted. And gatekeepers rise in every generation, but most never recognize themselves until their path forces the revelation. Their life is full of moments that feel out of place, timing that confuses others, but positions them perfectly. You are watched without reason. You are resisted without cause. You are elevated without permission. And you are protected without explanation. Something follows you that others cannot name, yet everyone feels it. Before a gatekeeper ever stands in their authority, life will begin to shape them into a doorway. So childhood becomes the early molding, not through ease, but through exposure to truths that others ignore. Gatekeepers tend to notice what is unsaid, and you will sense what is concealed and recognize disruption long before it appears. You will grow up reading the emotion in an environment without knowing why. And this ability is not a burden. It is the first sign that your spirit was configured to oversee transitions of destiny. The family often misunderstands this. So they see your sensitivities where there is foresight, and they see rebellion where there is a calling, and they see detachment where there is actually observation going on within you. But heaven sees someone that is being trained to stand between two worlds. Every gatekeeper carries a weight that feels old, so it sits across their life like the upper stone of a trilithon. It's heavy, it's steady, and it is undeniable. Now, this weight is not punishment. It is your endorsement. It signals the responsibility to regulate what crosses the threshold of a lineage. Pressure will find the gatekeeper early, because preparation must be thorough. So your trials become teachers, your loss becomes instruction, your silence becomes shaping, because hidden battles become inner mastery. And so what others collapse under, gatekeepers learn to breathe through. And what others fear, gatekeepers learn to confront. And what others avoid, gatekeepers learn to absorb and convert into wisdom. The capstone settles slowly, but once it rests, the gatekeeper becomes immovable. So once the weight you carry on your shoulders come stable and steady, because you build strength through everything you experience in life, you will become immovable. See, the true power of a trilithon is the empty space at its center, right? So the chosen carry that same sacred opening. And that is the inner passage where your guidance flows, where ancestral presence resonates, and where divine insight enters with ease. Now, this openness allows you to see through people's intentions, break through illusions, and navigate spiritual terrain without being instructed by humans. You don't need advice. Now, this is where divine strategy enters with precision. It is the part of you that cannot be controlled. You cannot be silenced, manipulated, or even reprogrammed. Some people feel unsettled around the gatekeeper because the opening reveals their motives to themselves, even if the gatekeeper says nothing. Wherever a gatekeeper stands, the atmosphere reorganizes. So people will begin to behave differently, right? And plans will shift, and hidden agendas will weaken, and opportunities will also appear because resistance exposes itself. Now, this is the threshold effect. See, the influence that radiates from a life aligned with its assignment, it is the threshold. See, because gatekeepers do not have to announce their authority, their presence does the speaking, right? So when you walk into environments with, I'll say, spiritual congestion, clarity begins to separate what belongs from what does not. And when you speak truth, confusion breaks. You give others that aha moment, right? You inspire others. You motivate others. And when you stand in silence, deception trembles because they can't tell what you're thinking. They don't know what you're about to do. They just feel uneasy when you're quiet. And you'll know which one it is because they'll say, "Are you okay?" And you'll say, "I'm fine." That's the one to watch. Now, this is why gatekeepers are often misunderstood as confrontational, when in reality, they are simply holding the line between what should enter and what must be denied. Every gatekeeper faces warfare that feels personal because it is personal. So darkness afford to certain cannot afford for certain individuals to awaken to their identity, you see? So that's why they distract you, put you in continuous stress. You're always going through something because they can't allow you to become stable. They can't allow you to become certain of who you are because the entire landscape around you will change. See, your attacks, they come through relationships, opportunities, betrayals, exhaustion, and distraction. The goal is to distort the opening in order to weaken the stance or even confuse the assignment. So every attack becomes part of your strengthening because at the end, when you get through it, everything that you observed and experienced is used for your good. And what was meant to break you will become the proof that you are necessary. Because gatekeepers rise not because they never fall, but because their spirit refuses to remain where darkness attempted to plant them. And I've spoken about gatekeepers before, but in the negative sense. This, I'm speaking about the chosen, and that's why I related it to the Trilithon. Now, there's going to come a moment when you stop questioning your difference and begin embracing your dominion, because something inside of you will click internally when that seed is planted. So it's like planting a seed in soil, and you're throwing down seeds, and all of a sudden you look back and all the seeds are no longer on top of the soil because the soil received them. And you're going to stop apologizing for your insight. They want you to see, really what they want to get to is, where did your insight come from? And they want to keep asking you about it, and with the sarcasm and, oh, you really don't know what you're talking about. Well, how do you know? Who told you? They want you to be verified through them when they're only going to distort the truth you tell them, right? And that's why you have to stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Stop becoming too accommodating, and stop ignoring what you know. When you accept your identity, the gate will activate fully. People who were draining fall away. Environments that were stuck open suddenly will seal, and dreams will intensify in some cases. But instructions will sharpen and your strength will return, because awareness becomes your weapon. Discernment becomes your compass, and your identity becomes your shield. And that's why distance is your medicine, not letting everyone in. You can have someone stand right next to you in a line, but that doesn't mean that you begin to tell them your life story. You are not here to control people. You are here to guide the flow. And so you regulate what reaches your lineage, their purpose, and their environment, because you will sense when something is permitted and when something must be denied. So when you say no, heaven will back it. When you say yes, pathways will open, because your decision will recalibrate futures. Your insight will preserve generations, and your boundaries will teach people how to approach you with respect. And a mature gatekeeper becomes a living checkpoint for destiny itself. See, unlike ancient stones that's fixed in the earth, human gatekeepers move, right? So you walk into rooms carrying the same authority as a fixed threshold. And so you shift dynamics without touching anything. You unlock people without speaking to them. You disarm hostility by simply standing still. See, you are a mobile portal that bridges between revelation and reality. And this mobility makes you unpredictable to darkness, but invaluable to heaven. See, your life is not about titles or recognition. It is about completing your assignments. See, destiny ripples outward through your choices. Your healing spreads through your courage. And your generational breakthroughs will emerge through your refusal to collapse. In the end, you realize that you were never guarding a doorway, that you were the doorway. See, you were the point where ruins ended and rebuilding will begin. So you are the passage where heaven met the earth, so to speak. And your life becomes a monument that stands long after you leave this earth and your season ends. Because there's going to be that moment when your journey will require you to stop asking why life has felt so strange, and finally understand that you were never meant to walk like everyone else. Some of you are born to move through the world as witnesses. Some of you are born to move through the world as healers. But a rare few were born to stand where paths cross, where destinies turn, where unseen realms lean close to inspect the soul, carrying an unusual assignment. Because these, which is you are the gatekeeper of destiny. And the world has always felt you, even when you did not feel it yourself. Because you carry an ancestry that refuses to fade. So the past does not trail behind you, it rises through you. And you're shaped by moments of dislocation. And there are times where nothing makes sense, yet everything is shifting inside you with purpose. See, the chosen often experience seasons that feel like rugged landscapes full of unexpected pressure and internal stretching. So these seasons are not punishment, they are construction. Heaven builds a gate the way ancient builders build trilithons: slow, deliberate, intentional, and anchored by endurance and crowned with weight. Thank you for visiting my channel. Stay covered, stay conscious, and stay undefeated. See you on the next one. Bye bye.